Hi. Hi, Joe.
Hi,
how are you doing? Wow, now quite a few people.
There you go.
That's nice. Oh, very good.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for
Hello,
joining
everyone.
us. I've just given everybody a quick introduction regarding yourself. So I'm not going to take anything away from you. I'm just going to hand the meeting over to you now. There you go. Oh, but just to let you know, I'm going to record this meeting. So that comes about just in case anybody says, they want to rehear something that was said or anything. So I'm going to put Dr. Joe on spotlight, and I don't know how she wants to run it. Let me just spotlight her. Can everybody see Dr. Joe in full size now?
Yeah.
Okay, you might not be able to see each other, but don't worry about that. Okay, I'll hand over to you, Joe.
Thanks very much. So I think it's important to point out that nothing I say will be medical advice. And I'm a retired GP who's still registered as a doctor. So I take a lot of interest in education around ketogenic diets, intermittent fasting, low carb diets, in fact, in all sorts of situations, because I run groups to do with changing lifestyle. So I came across Treflin last year when he was about halfway through his journey with intermittent fasting and a ketogenic diet. So what I wanted to do was to speak briefly about my experience, and then really to take a lot of questions from you, because you're all individuals and you've all got your individual experience, and you probably all have to do things slightly differently. So I thought I'd tell you about how I came to this. So one day in 2013, I was driving around doing my home visits, and there was a radio program with a doctor from America called Robert Lustig. And Robert Lustig was talking about how as a society in the West, we got it wrong. The big problem is sugar, not fat, and that natural fats are fine. And in avoiding fats and eating more sugar, we're actually making ourselves unwell, ill. And in particular, he was talking about children becoming obese through eating low-fat food, which was high-sugar food. And that set me thinking, because I'd been a doctor then for, I think, about 25 years. And I knew it was a mystery to me why some people got fat and some people stayed slim. I knew that it wasn't about eating less or moving more. I knew plenty of people who ate lots and were slim. I knew plenty of people who didn't eat much and were fat. So that set me thinking and set me on a journey. So the next thing I discovered was the ketogenic diet, but it was a very mild ketogenic diet. It wasn't one where you ate an awful lot of fat. It was one where you just tipped yourself into ketosis. And it was devised by an American doctor called Dr. David Perlmutter. And Dr. Perlmutter is a brain specialist. And he devised this simple, very mildly ketogenic diet where you basically had a plate full of vegetables, above ground vegetables, and you added in a bit of meat or fish, or perhaps you might have had some lentils or kidney beans, that sort of thing, and you checked your urine each day to make sure you're in ketosis, and over time your health improved. So it was very much about improving your health rather than weight loss, and with this I lost about 2 stone in 4 months, and I didn't have any more to lose. In fact, I got a bit too thin. But when I did this, I realized that everything that we were telling people about weight was wrong, really. We were saying, have low fat food and exercise a lot and you'll be fine. And I knew that people weren't fine, but I didn't know what was better. But when I discovered this mildly ketogenic diet, I realized that was definitely better. And I discovered also from Dr. Lustig, he has a video called The Bitter Truth About Sugar. And And I think that's really worthwhile watching. Millions of people have watched it. And I realized that in demonizing fat, we had created a big problem for ourselves. So now I have a website called Fat is My Friend, which is www.fatismyfriend, all lowercase, .co.uk. And it's a very simple little website. I don't even add to it very often. I just have it ticking over, and people can read about my journey, and they can read little blogs that I've written about different aspects of this way of life, because it's about being healthier. And for a lot of people, it means their asthma gets better, they get less breathless because they weigh less. Maybe not even if they weigh less, if it's due with asthma or allergies, their eczema might improve. Lots and lots of things improve about people's health when they eat this way. And we're talking about whole foods, real foods, things like vegetables, fish, meat, beans, but in moderation. People who are vegetarian can do it, but they do need to eat more beans and lentils than someone who's not doing it the vegetarian way. Now, I thought I'd show you something that I think is really interesting. So I think I've got it here. I haven't put it away. So I've put it up on the shelf. Just bear with me a second. So Treflin and I were talking about calories, and he was saying he didn't think calories were very useful, and I agree with him. And I actually think it's to everybody's detriment when they focus on calories and how many calories they're having each day. But I realized that quite a lot of people who follow my way of eating don't actually eat that many calories, but they've got all their calories on their bodies if they need to use them up. So they've often got pounds and pounds of extra weight, and each pound is supposed to be equivalent to 3,500 calories. So they don't need to worry about the calories in food. They should just eat food that makes them full, keeps them going for at least sort of 4 or 5 hours, maybe more. And I really tell them not to look at calories at all. But here's something. Now, I hope you can see this clearly. So this is from a book called Carbs and Cals. And I suggest to people that with each meal, they eat less than 10 grams of carbs. So you'll see that the one that's got 2 eggs, 2 mushrooms, some tomatoes and some bacon on it only has 4 grams of carbs. Now, that is a meal that would keep me going for about 4, probably 6 hours. In fact, I go as far as to say it might keep me going for about 8 hours. And if I had that sort of equivalent meal in a day, I'd only be having 12 grams of carbs if I had like that meal 3 times. I know that's a rather funny thing to say, but equally, with the calories, if you had that, you'd be having less than 1,200 calories a day if you had 3 identical meals to that, which I think is quite interesting, really, because I really tell people not even to look at the calories. I said, it really doesn't matter. Just eat what you want, you enjoy, that's real food, fresh food, prepared from scratch, that's low in carbs, and try and have under 10 grams per meal, assuming you were having 3 meals a day. But anybody who'd done that would probably be on actually fairly low calorie diet anyway. But to focus on that makes you feel deprived. So I think it's much more helpful just to focus on, well done, thanks Treflin. That's the book it's from. So there isn't one you can get, well, there probably are ones you can get called carb counters, just carb counters. But actually, I like that one best because it's got those lovely diagrams, lovely photographs, and it makes you picture how much food to put on your plate. Because I have never advised people to try and match up to the macros. I know lots of people do macros with low carb and keto, and if you like that sort of thing, if it works for you, fantastic. But it never worked. I never did it because I think I would have found it a bit obsessional, and it would have made me feel like I was on a diet, and I just wanted to improve my lifestyle. I didn't want to feel like I was on a diet. So that's it. And the other thing is that it actually gives you the weights of things and gives you ideas. You can see further down the page, they've got a vegetarian breakfast there, and they've got one that's based on fish, which is rather good. But I don't want to actually say anything more now, because I think a lot of things will come out of the discussion, and I think it's more important to hear your questions rather than me just going on about things that maybe are going down lines that you don't want to hear about. So I think it'd be better if we got everybody up, Treflin, and then people could ask me questions, and then a lot of, I think I think that will generate a lot of replies that many people will be interested in.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks. Right, I know there's a lot of us here and we can't all speak at once, but I'll let Joe decide who wants to speak. So if you want to speak and you're not getting attention, just put your hand up, wave about, jump up and down, and then Joe will just ask you as and when. Okay.
That's great. Are you going to put everybody's faces on the screen now, or a selection of them?
Yeah, well, that's what I've done. I've just put everybody who's there, because
very good. That's great.
We are now in what we call gallery view, but I can put speaker view on. So while I'm talking, fine. My voice is coming on, and if you speak, yours will come on. Does that work for everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's lovely. I see, Lee, you've got a hand up.
Yeah. So thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Joe. So I'm 3 months yesterday into 1 meal a day, no more than 20 grams of carbs, and I'm 3 stone down at the moment. In the last 3 weeks, thank you. In the last 3 weeks, I've started to introduce exercise. Now I can't run because my knees have given up over the years of being overweight. When you went on this, and same for triathlon as well, does exercise really make that massive amount of difference, or does it, obviously in your fitness it will do, but in terms of weight loss, is it purely what I eat, or would going for a 5-6 mile walk a day make a significant difference as well?
Well, I think that's a really good question, Lee. And I don't know if you heard me saying, very well done. The hardest thing about this is actually starting and then keeping going with it. But once you keep going, it tends to keep you going. The momentum keeps you going. So very good question about exercise. So how can I put this? When I started, exercise was something I did anyway. So keeping up with normal exercise is a good thing. You definitely don't want to be ruining your knees when you've got arthritis anyway. And so what I say to people in my groups is to gradually increase the exercise over time. And to do something that you enjoy. The most important thing is to do something you enjoy. Getting out in nature is really good. Walking's really good. When we're allowed to be with friends, walking with a friend, having a chat. Anything that reduces your stress levels will tend to reduce your cortisol and your adrenaline, and that will tend to reduce your blood sugar, and that's a really good thing. And so it does help you indirectly to exercise. But one of the beauties about this way of eating is that it helps everybody, even people who can't exercise. I think that's lovely. I think with a lot of ways of lifestyle change, people seem to imply that you have to exercise, but I know that a lot of people can't, for health reasons, and obviously people may be shielding at the moment as well. But once you're able to exercise, walking is probably the best. Walking or swimming, something gentle, or yoga, or Pilates, something that's not going to put too much strain on your joints.
Thank you.
I personally, I didn't do any exercising other than walking to the kitchen and walking back again. That was my total exercise.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, Pablo.
Okay. I guess the question deals with the issue of when you are insulin resistant. I understand that when you eat carbs, the level of insulin goes up dramatically compared with a normal person, say a factor of 5 to 10 times. Okay, does that mean that when you start eating carbs, you gain weight much faster than a normal person? Because that's kind of my experience. It's like in December, I was. I was not following the low carb diet, but I sort of felt that my weight increased dramatically. And does that have to do with this issue of insulin resistance?
Yes, I think so. And it's not just about gaining fat. You retain a lot of fluid as well. So in the first week of going in a low carbohydrate diet, people often lose a lot of weight. They might lose 7 to 10 pounds of weight in a week. And a lot of that is water, because you retain water and you also retain sodium. So these things are a consequence of having a high insulin level. And yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. The people who are insulin resistant gain weight more rapidly than people who aren't. And when I was a child, I had one of my grandmothers was very overweight, and she had diabetes. And I used to wonder, why she was overweight when, my other grandmother was slim. And my other I wouldn't say she ate any less. Like a lot of women back in the 1960s, they were slim. My other grandmother was slim, and they both ate sweets, and they both, they both had biscuits. They both cooked their normal meals. They both were people who would cook, 3 meals a day. So it wasn't as if either of them ate, a lot of junk food, but one of them was overweight.
Okay. Thank you.
Joanne? Malcolm here.
Hello, Malcolm.
Hi. I noticed just before you mentioned adrenaline, and I was a musician for many, many years, and so consequently my eating habits, we'd go on and play at night, and your adrenaline would really pump, and then you'd be hungry for a takeaway on the way home from a gig at 1 or 2 in the morning. And so my whole lifestyle was sort of eating mainly at night time. I'm now diabetic. I have fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, and diverticulitis. My biggest problem is overcoming, because I have a terrible sweet tooth, overcoming the munchies and the pangs for sweet things. I can't eat the white of egg. And so, keto diet's like full of truffles and things like that, which I can eat those, but everybody says, oh, get up in the morning and have 2 eggs. And I don't eat egg. So I've always only had sort of toast and marmalade in the morning. So it's trying to find the substitutes and trying to create a new diet for myself. And my dad's 98 and I've got to keep the weight on him. So it's trying to get into that mentality and know and get into the habit of what I can do and what I can eat to overcome those munchies, because it gets to 11 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon and you want a biscuit. And I feel the shakes, I'm on metformin.
Is that the only medication you're on?
Oh, no.
Is that the only medication you're on for diabetes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's okay. So that makes it simpler, because if people are on a whole variety of medications, then they need to get advice from the doctor about cutting them down. So so a very, very good question about breakfast, because a lot of people don't fancy eggs, or even if they do like eggs, they often get fed up with them after a few months. So one easy thing, it's a bit strange, is to eat last night's leftovers for breakfast. Make double and just eat that, because Britain and America are countries where people have special breakfast food, but in a lot of countries people eat just ordinary food for breakfast. So if your breakfast based on meat or fish, that's fine. If you made chicken curry last night with cauliflower rice, have it in the morning, no problem at all. Snacks, I tend to suggest a list from Diet Doctor. There are lots of things you can have as snacks for the gaps where you used to have, crisps or nuts or whatever. So apart from hard-boiled eggs, there'll be things like cream cheese and sticks of celery and sausages and chicken legs and things like that. Basically meaty snacks, or what's that meat called? There's a dried meat. I forget the name of it because I don't eat it, but some people have that.
Jerky.
Beef jerky. Yeah, that's right. Instantly, if any of you, thank you very much. This is great. Trefton's just brilliant. This is Diet Doctor. It's a fabulous site. You don't need to pay for it. It's free. If you want to pay for it for a month, you'll get a lot more things on it. Inspiring videos. It's true. Delicious recipes. It's very good for all sorts of diets, as in whether you're fish eating, vegetarian, meat eating, whatever. You'll see there it's got over 1,000 recipes. It's got 24/7 support. Lots of doctor videos. If any of you want to know all the science behind it, there are lots of really good doctor videos. Number 1 most visited low carb site in the world. And I've actually made lots of the recipes. We used to run meetings for doctors before COVID, and I used to get the chef at the hospital to make meals from Diet Doctor, and they really loved them. They didn't even know they were low carb or keto, the doctors who came along, until I told them. I said, this is the sort of food you can make. It is fabulous. It's really good. And there are lots of breakfast ideas on there. Now, one thing about breakfast, I don't know if any of you never feel hungry at breakfast time. Anybody want to say yes? I never feel hungry at breakfast.
Rarely.
Never hungry anymore.
No, never.
Everyone.
Never hungry.
Hi, Maggie.
Always hungry.
The mornings.
Excellent. So I was speaking to my husband about it this morning, and I was saying how they've done studies which have shown that if people who are overweight are in the habit of never eating breakfast, and then they start eating breakfast, they put weight on. So there's something about your body telling you you don't need breakfast if you're not hungry in the morning.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Oh.
So your first meal of the day could be at 10 or 12 or whenever you happen to feel hungry. Just make sure you've got the food ready to eat. And that might help you, mightn't it? Because, you struggle to think of what you want in the morning, and maybe you wouldn't fancy last night's leftovers, and maybe it would suit you better not to eat anything till 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Since going on one meal a day, I'm rarely hungry all day, to be honest. In fact, sometimes when I get down to about 6 o'clock, I might have a soup because I'm not really hungry for that. So, it's just how your body adapts, I suppose, isn't it?
That's interesting. That's good. Well, I haven't tried one a meal a day yet. I have tried 2. I was on 2 meals a day for a while when I was working. I'd often just have 2 meals, and that would be fine.
Yeah, I've done it for 3 weeks now.
Very good.
Yeah.
We've got Sharon with the hands up there. So.
And Andrea, I'll do Andrea afterwards. Yeah, so Andrea as well, briefly.
All right.
So,
Hello, can I just ask, if you're on metformin, which my husband is, he's lost an awful lot of weight and he has no appetite. But I was kind of under the impression, is this just the general out there, that he had to eat fairly regularly? Because I make him eat breakfast and I think now maybe I shouldn't be.
Yeah, well, if you have metformin and an empty stomach, it can give you the runs, so that's not very nice.
That happens very regularly, yes.
But he could ask his doctor to have a formulation that's just at night, a slow release formulation, so that might be better.
Yeah.
But it doesn't lower the blood sugar rapidly like some other medications, so he should still go by how hungry he feels, and if he doesn't feel like breakfast, that's fine.
Lovely. Right here, thank you.
Okay. And let's see, who's next? Andrea, thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Andrea.
What do I call you? Dr. Joanne, I want to be respectful.
Call me Dr. Joe. That's what
Dr. Joe. Me. That's fantastic. Hi, Dr. Joe. I've been doing the, let me stop and say that we just love Treflin. He's awesome. So, number one. And I started doing the 1 meal a day, the OMAD, which, I loved. The only thing that I didn't like about it is that I found that so many foods in my refrigerator were like going bad because I can't fit everything into one meal. And I wanted to be able to experience and have more of a variety of different things that I eat. So I just recently started TwoMad, and I eat between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. every day. That's a window that I've tried different things and I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with that. Sometimes when I'm hungry in the morning, I'm not starving. Once I get up, and, drink my water and get busy with my day, the hunger goes away. So I'm good at 2 o'clock to start eating for the first time and then finish around 6. And that feels like that works better for me. Number one, I get to not have to put everything in one meal. And when I'm hungry at 2, I can eat something, and then I know I'll be able to eat again before I go to bed at 6, after 6 o'clock, and that's still a really good time to stop eating. So, what do you think about that plan? It feels better to me, but what do you think about it, health-wise?
I think it sounds absolutely fine. I think everybody needs to find the plan that suits them. And for some people, 1 meal a day is just too stressful, from lots of points of view, maybe because they don't have the variety of foods, maybe because they are actually hungry, beyond that 1 hour. So I think if you find something that suits you, that's fantastic. I know that 1 meal a day would probably be too little for me. I just feel that instinctively. And I have recently, I did meet somebody who was doing 1 meal a day, and they were feeling hungry all the time in between, and it never really settled down, and they felt it was much too stressful. And you see, when you get stressed, it raises your stress hormones and it raises your blood sugar. You make more sugar, and then that's counterproductive. So the thing about eating, whether it's 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day, or whatever, is choose the thing that fits in with your natural inclination and listen to your body about what's right for you. And that's the thing. The same with exercise. There's no point doing 2 hours 7 days a week, like some people come in and they're really stressed with it. It'd be better to do half an hour 5 times a week, if that's just fitted better in with your lifestyle and schedule.
Right. What you're saying makes perfect sense, because as much as I love OMAD, I was listening to my body instead of feeling like, okay, this is great, this is working, everybody else is doing it. I didn't look at it that way. I look at it as what is your body telling you to do, And as I enjoyed the OMAD, I realized that I'm not getting the benefit of enjoying so many different foods with that 1 meal a day. I'm not getting to have fruit, I'm not getting to have oatmeal, I'm not getting to have omelets, like just certain things. So I get a better variety of different foods, and I'm still eating in that great window of 4 hours and then fasting for 20. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm still doing it, but this is what my body is telling me. And once I clicked into that, I got more comfortable with I'm doing not what I want to do, but what my body says to do.
Yeah, no, that's very good. And that's one of the hardest things about this way of life, because we do encourage everybody to do their own thing. So sometimes husbands and wives may be on a different sort of schedule. Same with friends. I might go out with a friend for coffee and I'll just have black coffee, and they might not these days, but because we've got all the COVID restrictions, but they might have a cake. I think, well, I don't eat cake. But that's fine. I'm happy for you to have a cake. It's fine. Right. And it's getting used to that, isn't it? That we do different things according to what our body needs. Right. So great.
Hi, Andrew.
Thank you,
Whereabouts are you, please? Where are you based?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm in the United States, in Pensacola, New Jersey, in South Jersey, 15 minutes outside of Philadelphia.
Okay, there's a lot of people on here from different parts of the world. So if you're not from the UK, when you do get a chance to speak, if you just let us know where you're from, because we are so glad that we can reach out this far. Thanks a lot again.
I'm glad I figured out 4 o'clock for you guys meant 11 a.m. for me. So
that's why we made it later on. We might change our Monday afternoon meetings to this time if it suits people better. Right, pass you back to Dr. Joe.
Bye.
Dr. Joe again, it's Malcolm.
Hi, Malcolm.
Regarding sweeteners, there's a lot of controversy over sweeteners. I use one from Lidl, which doesn't have an after flavor. But what would you say is better? I know it's better to cut out everything, but I cannot drink tea without anything. So I'll have 2 sweeteners. Would it be better to have 2 sweeteners or 1 sugar?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, from a point of view of your blood sugar going up and down, better to have the sweetener. Right. From a point of view of retraining your sweet tooth, probably better to just gradually cut down the sweetness and cut it out. So if you currently have 2 sweeteners, sort of crushing them to a powder and seeing if you can get down to 1.5 and 1 and then 1/2, and actually just get used to the less sweetness. Yeah. The reason for that is because it seems to me that every time society invents a new sweetener, they dish the dirt on the old sweetener. And, when I was a child, it was Hermositas or saccharin. That was great. And then when they invented, I don't know if it's Canderel or whatever, then Hermositas was dreadful and caused cancer in rats. And each time they invent a new sweetener, the new sweetener is much safer than the old one. And then they tell you what was wrong with the old one. So I'm quite cynical about the safety of sweeteners. But they're good in transition when you're getting used to less sweetness. Yeah. And what I did when I started my journey, I did lots of substitute sweet stuff for savory things I enjoyed. Now there may or may not be an equivalent, like I don't know if you'd like black coffee or whatever, but instead of having jam on toast, I would have had cheese on toast, and then or maybe peanut butter, something less sweet. So I did lots of substitutes, so I had more savory things, and then I gradually weaned myself off all the carbs as well. So sweeteners are things I've used, like for instance the latest one, say, that I know of is stevia, but they never really hit the spot. I used to have a sweet tooth as well, and I found that things made with sweeteners just weren't as nice. So here we go. So this one, I presume, is this from, what's this from?
I just Googled it, safety of sweetness.
Yeah.
That's all I've done.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Joe, if this is Lee again, I concur with exactly what you've said there, because previously, and to Malcolm as well, I was a cup of tea with 1 sugar, or I was a cafe latte with 1 sugar. But because of the way I am, very similar to Treflin, as in I'm all in or I'm not at all, is that I did cut it all out. And you do retrain your taste buds to what you're going. And it's tough, don't get me wrong, but now I drink black tea, and now I drink black coffee with no sugar. I've cut sugar out completely out of my diet. And it is really hard because your body craves and screams for it like a drug that you'll stop giving it to. But you do now. I'll have a black coffee. And the funny thing, you do start training yourself to not need that sweet taste. I don't use sweetness personally, because to me, that's all I'm doing is substituting and satisfying that sweet tooth. So that's why I don't use. And so as long as I keep satisfying it, it's going to keep wanting it. So if I've cut it out all completely, but if you give yourself, Malcolm, if you give yourself 2 to 3 weeks of just drinking tea with no sugar, yes, it's not going to be great at the start, but eventually it's fine.
Lee, can I just ask you, Lee, just to upset everybody, tell them what you do.
Oh, I work for Mars Chocolate. I sell lorry loads of chocolate. I sell lorry loads of chocolate every day.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Can I ask a question, Dr. Joe?
Certainly. Hi, Maggie.
Hi. How are you? So the biggest shock was that you've been a doctor for 25 years. You don't look old enough.
It's even longer now. That was then.
Well, you were a great exponent. It's really interesting because I had 2 questions, but you really answered one of them, which is my sweet tooth, my downfall. And as Treflin says, if you don't buy it, you don't have a problem with it. So anyway, that was one of them. But the other thing that's always been at the back of my mind, if you're going to eating mostly meat with veg and fish, are you concerned at all about the chemicals that might be in the meats that you're eating? I know that you can try and go organic, but not everyone can, and it's actually easier to get meat that from main supermarkets and it's cheaper. But also cholesterol. Are you worried about that at all?
Well, that's a very good question. Very, very good. Thanks, Maggie. So if you imagine a whole plate and have it mostly full of vegetables, lots and lots of vegetables, and the meat's almost like garnish size. So it doesn't have to be very meat-based. That said, some people do ketogenic diets that are very meat-based, with the meat and the fat on it. And the funny thing is that a lot of them get totally normal cholesterols. So it's to do with your own metabolism of cholesterol. So even the people who do a very meat-based one, but I suppose in a way I did a very vegetable-based one with a little bit of meat or fish. It wasn't very meat or fish heavy. So concerning the environment, for instance, I think you could do it and be quite a low meat and fish user. And have it very based on vegetables, and then you add in your healthy fats like your olive oil and your nuts and so on. And obviously, when the meat you do buy, you can have it sustainably sourced. You can have it local. You can buy the cheaper cuts as well. So I try to go for the 20% mince, rather than the 5%. But yes, it doesn't have to be very heavy in meat. A lot of people think that that you're going for a high protein, high meat diet, but it isn't really. And to be in ketosis, it's best not to have too much protein. And ketosis is a state where you burn up your body fat and make ketones. So you live on your ketones rather than living on sugar.
I think that is really, really interesting advice. And is that how? So that was when you did it with a Dr. Parlameter, the first one, which is basically what I'm trying to do, which is veg and protein on the plate. And then you take yourself off the sweet tooth. That's my downfall, the sweet tooth. But thank you. That's really, really interesting, actually. That's if you think of it as vegetables not just being an add-on, actually they're really quite central to the diet.
Yeah, it's a really big part of it. And I think, you know, when people look at the plate, the macro plate, and they've got quite a lot of fat on it and a little bit of protein and obviously very small amount of carbs, they tend to think of having to eat an awful lot of fat. But actually, when you've got weight to lose, that fat is mostly coming from your body rather than from your plate. You put some fat on, you know, you might cook an olive oil or put that in your salad and cook in ghee or cook in lard or whatever. But it's I don't think a lot of people realize that you can do this through vegetables with a small amount of protein each time from your meat or fish.
That might be a light bulb moment. That might be. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hi there. Dr. Joe.
Yes, hello, Harvey. Hello.
Hello. Thank you. And hello, gang. Hello, everybody. I've got two questions. I'm on a very strict OMAD diet. I've actually been since in February, and I only eat one meal a day, and that's actually without any fat really in my keto diet. Now, what sort of vitamins should I supplement it with? Because I mean, I do eat meat, protein, and I eat some vegetables. I don't have any fat in the diet. So what's the best added vitamins? At the moment, I'm taking my multivitamin. I'm taking omega-3. I'm taking D3. I think I'm taking B2. I'm taking the whole actually periodic table because I'm scared that I'm missing something. Now I'm missing something. So, what do you suggest?
Okay, that's a good question. So, if the fat soluble, I guess it's the fat soluble vitamins and the omega-3s. If you're willing to eat organ meats, you can get a lot of vitamins from and minerals from organ meats like liver, kidney, that sort of thing, and then you wouldn't be having much fat from that. And the other thing that's really good for vitamins is sardines. The most nutritious foods in the world are liver and sardines, based on how much nutrients they've got per 100 grams. And not many people think of that. They think of fruit and veg as being the most nutritious, but it's actually animal products. Fruit and veg are much lower in nutrients. So, and they don't have any essential fats or protein. So you're going to be getting enough protein from what you say. So just to make sure you get enough essential fats. So the ones you can't make are the omega-3s. So you could get those from a supplement or get them from actually eating fish, which would be fine. I think that, you know, because you're doing really a low carb, low fat diet, all your fat's coming from your body. Yeah. That if you do that, then you should be absolutely fine.
Just to say, you know, when the ketone, the fat. Oh, is that me? Is that me or is that someone else? I don't know. Anyway, on a unit of fat, how much vitamins are in there? So when the ketones go and dissolve the fat, so I have the energy. How much vitamins are there in that fat? I mean, what really is in that fat?
Okay, so the fat soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K. Right. But you probably know that you can't get that much from your diet, and that for reasons that are
asking about his body fat, Joe.
Yeah, you're talking about so you think in your body fat you would have vitamins, there would be fat soluble vitamins there anyway. I don't know, that's a very good question, because in a way, if you had enough in your own body fat, then you wouldn't need to eat, you wouldn't need to get vitamins A, D, E, and K, would you? But exactly. Accessing your body fat can be a problem. So, you know, like as in when people don't lose the weight and actually use it up, it's stored away beyond use sometimes. So I suppose I tend to cover it by saying, well, if you have supplementation, that'll be helpful. Everybody should have vitamin D because we just don't get enough in the UK. And it's been shown that when people are overweight, they have lower vitamin D than other people for whatever reason. So having enough vitamin D, the sprays tend to be quite high. But it's a good question. I will ask my nutritionist friend, and when I find out the answer about in terms of, you know, the storage of vitamins within our own body fat, when I find out the answer from my nutritionist friend, I will let Treflin know and he can put it on his website.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Dr. Dr. McCormack.
Hello.
Dr. Joe.
Yes.
My name. Hello, Treflin. How are you?
How are you doing? Welcome.
Not too bad. Ned is the name. I joined your site there some time ago. I had a two-part question, and I'm taking proteins on the RDI, the recommended daily intake. My first question, is that okay? I can't, because of a condition, Barrett's esophagus, I can't take fat because the acidity in them is playing hell with the Barrett's esophagus. And the other question then was, some time ago, during the first COVID lockdown, I was very, very big into my exercise. Now, I did suffer dizzy spells. Now, from what Treflin said, it had a lot to do with body salts. Did I get that information right? So the thing is, I'm taking protein on the recommended daily. Yeah, is that okay? The RDI there. And the other one is then, was lack of salt the cause of my dizziness? Or is there, basically the dizziness would manifest itself when I hop up off an armchair. I'd get up on my feet, and the first few steps, I'd nearly have to, lean on something. So could we talk about that, please, just for a moment? And thanks very much.
Okay. Just need to speak up a bit. I'm sorry about. I mean, we're not hearing you as well as we should do, but I think.
Okay. The first question is, I had dizziness, and I put it down to that I wasn't taking sufficient salt. And the other question is, then I don't use fat at all, and I'm doing the OMAD on protein, more or less 100%.
Okay, so how do you ensure you have no fat at all and just eat protein? Because most foods have got some fat or protein in them rather than being 100%.
Well, you can take the white of an egg is pretty much, egg whites are pretty much pretty much protein only. The yolk, I would take maybe the yolk of one egg some days and the yolk of 2 eggs other days, but I keep it fairly limited because of the acidity in the fats. That's my problem,
Okay, so I think this is a very good question. So a lot of people who start off on a low carbohydrate diet have got Barrett's esophagus or they've got acid reflux. It's a very, very common problem. And a lot of people who do this are already on drugs like Losec and lansoprazole. Or lansoprazole, I should say. So a lot of people think that it's the fat that makes them have more acidity, but they find that when they cut down the carbohydrate and they're not having, say, cheese and bread, they might just be having cheese, they find that they can tolerate it a lot better. So that's one thing. However, if you decide to be on a fat-free, mostly protein and low carb diet, you're still getting the fat from your body fat, assuming you're overweight. So you've still got the fat from there to give you energy. So that's fine. People can do this in many ways. I was talking to Maggie about how when I started, it was a very vegetable based with a little bit of meat and fish, which is fine. But some people do this 100% carnivore. Some people do this as vegetarians. Some people do it as mainly meat and fish based without being wholly carnivore. So if you want to do it and it's mostly protein and a bit of carbohydrate, that's fine. So we're talking about, meat, fish, egg white, that sort of thing. No reason why you shouldn't do it that way if that's what you like. Okay. After a long time, when you get better, you might find that your esophagus is more tolerant of a wider range of foods. And I have heard of one person whose Barrett's esophagus got better with a low carbohydrate diet. And I've heard of lots of people who've come off the drugs like Losec because they no longer get acid reflux.
Okay. Doctor, could you the dizziness now is...
Are you still getting the dizziness?
No. During the first lockdown, I was working hard at this. This is before I ran into Treflin's page, and I got severe dizziness, and Treflin said something about body salt, and I started concentrating on that. Now I don't get dizziness anymore. Was my dizziness resulting in that I wasn't taking enough salt?
Yes, so that's a good question, and that happens to a lot of people who start on a low carbohydrate diet. And the reason is that your kidneys get rid of extra salt when you go on a low carbohydrate diet, and they get rid of fluid as well. And if you don't take extra salt, you will feel dizzy, your blood pressure will fall, especially when you stand up from a chair, that sort of thing, or get out of bed in the morning. And if you add in extra salt, and it could be half a teaspoon spread over a day, you divide it into 3 for 3 meals or whatever, or put some in some water and drink it. But the extra salt's very necessary. And because you're having a diet which has got no processed food in it at all, you're getting very little salt from your diet unless you add it in. So the two reasons really, one is that your kidneys get rid of salt, and the other one is that your new diet will have a lot less salt in it relative to the old diet.
Thanks very much, Doctor. And many thanks to Treflin too, because his site and his delivery actually is inspirational.
That's great.
Did you get that? Did you get that, Treflin?
I agree.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'll sort you out later. I'll send you the money later.
Treflin, from what I can see, money doesn't seem to be a primary objective of yours anyway. So thanks again, folks.
Okay, thanks.
Oh.
Right, anybody else? Any other questions?
Yeah, one more question.
Hi, Andrea.
Yes, hi, Dr. Joe. I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to get my body to use the fat that's already here, like eating between 2 and 6. I'm a meat person, and veggies, like I love meats and veggies. So it's not a hardship for me to have meat, tons of vegetables on my plate, or whatever. So in my diet, should it consist of less fats so that the fats that I get comes from my body? Because I'm trying to get my body to eat up the fat that's already here.
That's what we've been saying, Andrea. That's what I've been saying to you for ages, but I've started to interrupt you, Joe.
No, it's okay. So it depends. I mean, I tend to take the long-term view. So this is a big change for your body. You've changed your lifestyle. You're eating in a 4-hour window. And I tend to say to people, now imagine if you lost a pound a week. You go in pounds rather than kilograms, don't you, in America, Andrea? So if you lost a pound a week, you could lose 52 pounds in a year. That's an awful lot of weight, isn't it? 104 pounds in 2 years. And it'd be very gradual. I don't know how much weight you've got to lose, but, you don't have to cut all your fat out. People can if they want to. But if that's too stressful, having a bit of fat with your food, like cooking things, adding olive oil to a salad or melted butter to your broccoli, that sort of thing, will make it quite tasty. You don't need to put on very much. I think if you find, as long as you're losing, people say, well, how much should I lose? I say, well, you should lose about £1 pound a week, certainly more than 2 pounds in a month. And if you're not losing that, then it might be a sign you need to cut back on your fat. Treflin's got a very good video about, the ketogenic diet, and about how he had to cut out the fat to actually get his weight down, and had to do some extended fasts as well. But not everybody has to do that. It's a bit dependent on your own metabolism and what it's like. So I set myself a goal of a year, and often I encourage my patients to set a goal of a year. And if you can do it within the year, that's great. You don't have to, overdo it. You might have some days when you actually have less fat. You might have a few days a week when you have a lot less fat, and other days when you're more relaxed about it. But as long as the trend's down and you're keeping on losing week to week, that's fine. The fat makes food palatable and can make you feel full for longer. So that's a reason to keep it in. But if you overdo it, like a classic seems to be people having lots of double cream. You might call it heavy cream and fruit. People having bowls of heavy cream and fruit. That seems to be classic. Or putting butter in their coffee. The doctor who taught me how to do it, Dr. David Perlmutter. He didn't go in for that sort of thing. He was much more into having proper meals, proper snacks if you're going to have snacks, but discouraging the snacks and having lots of high nutrient foods rather than adding fat to things for the sake of it.
Okay. I think where I'm at now, I'm trying to just focus on eating in between 2 and 6 and eating good meals, whether I eat one time in that 4 hours or whether I eat twice. And, however many times I eat just in that 4 hour window. Right now, I'm just focusing on mastering that. And not
I would think that'd be enough. I would think that would be enough for you, and it should work.
I don't want to be trying to focus on all these other things. Just get that good eating in between that 4 hour window. And then one of the things that Treflin said that I only measured, weigh myself like once a week. And he was saying that you should maybe, for some people, it may be good to do it every day, because in that way, if you do something different as far as what you eat, you'll be able to tell in your weight, which is a good idea. For me, I didn't want to get so hooked on mentally to what's happening on the scale and then feel defeated when there's other good things that's going on in my body that the scale is not telling me. So I didn't want that to be something that makes me feel like I'm not making progress. But at the same time, what he said, has merit. So I just decided I'm just going to focus on getting good eating in between 2 and 6, and start seeing what changes are going to happen. I'm just going to stay focused on that. And then that'll help me going forward, I think. What do you think?
I think that's a really good idea. I think taking the long-term view, one of the things I did was I thought, well, at the end of month 1, I should be 4 down or better. At the end of month 2, I should be 8 down or better. And then, it never happens in a linear fashion. There will be some months when you lose a lot more, some you lose less, but it's all in the right direction. And overall, the trend is down. And there's a doctor I work with called Dr. David Unwin, who you've probably heard about. He's been doing it the longest of any doctor in England. Well, nearly. There's one other doctor who's been doing it longer than him. And he was saying that people in his group are still continuing to lose weight and get better health after 4 or 5 years, because they're on a very long journey. And some people are on a long journey and they're able to keep it up because it's enjoyable and it feels right.
That's what I want, the lifestyle change. This is not something I'm going to stop doing. I'm just trying to develop a different way that I live and trying to change my connection or my relationship with food. I'm just trying to change that and have that be how I live, and not just something that I'm doing and then I'm going to stop. I don't want that.
It sounds great. Well, good luck. I look forward to hearing how you get on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joe.
And we love your accent.
Can I just put a shout out to Linda out there in Canada? Linda, I don't know if you can hear me. If you can, put your hand up. Okay, we can hear you. So I know you want to say something. I've sent you a private message. If you leave the meeting and then come back in again, that will sometimes fix the sound issues. And then I'm sure Dr. Joe will invite you to speak. Okay? Right, sorry, Joe.
The other thing that Linda could do is type me the question, and then you could read it out and I could answer it, because it sounds like Linda can hear me.
Yeah, but if she wants to try logging out, leaving the meeting, come back in, that does fix sound problems. Right.
Sure.
Okay, sorry.
I think Elaine's trying to speak. Did you want to go first? No, you go. Okay.
This is my wife. She talks to me all the time.
Gotcha. Okay, my question is, by the way, I'm from Oregon in the U.S. This is great.
United States.
My question is, carbs and sugars, to me, once I stop them, help me to not have cravings, which has been great. But I've been taught, it seems like forever, that if you eat, you're supposed to eat 3 meals a day and 2 snacks. In essence, you're supposed to eat every 2 hours, which if you get that much food, then your body just counts on the food. If it doesn't use it all, it packs it on as pounds. Now, the theory that I've heard from fasting is that if you go a certain amount of time then without eating, then your body goes in to start using the fat on your body for fuel instead of the food that you constantly stuff in your mouth all day long. But what I'm hearing you say is that it's the lack of carbs for an entire day will help you lose weight compared to not eating for a certain amount of time. Did that make sense?
Yes.
I understood you, Elaine.
So there are more than two mechanisms, but you've described two mechanisms. So one mechanism for losing weight is to eat in a window, which is short, rather than eating 5 times a day or 7 times a day, to eat in a short window of time. And so that means for the remainder of time, like in Andrea's case, she's got 20 hours when she's not eating at all. And in that time, Andrea's insulin level will drop, and that will enable her to use her fat stores. So that's one mechanism. Another mechanism is to avoid having too many carbs. So in that eating window, if you only eat if you could choose how much you want to eat, but you could eat 30 grams of carbs in that window. And if you do that, then you'll have a lower insulin response than if you ate 200 grams of carbs, because it's quite common for people to have 200, 300 grams of carbs in a day when they're on a standard diet. And when you have a small amount of carbs, your insulin level goes up and stays up for a while and then comes down again, and your blood sugar goes up less because you're eating less sugar and comes down more. And because you actually have less carbs, where you will need some carbs because you do need glucose. So where are you going to get it from? So if you don't get it from your food, you're going to have to make it from something else. And you can make it from your glycogen stored in your liver, for instance, or you can make glucose you can make glucose through something called gluconeogenesis, just how your body makes it. So I didn't catch your name, the chap who's Irish, who was saying he just eats protein and not too much fat, but he will be, so you'll be making all your sugar, you'll be making all your own sugar through gluconeogenesis or using up your glycogen stores. And that's actually a very common thing that people say about low carb diets. Well, you can't do that because your body needs sugar. And I counter that by saying, yes, it's so important your body makes sugar. Even if you don't eat anything, even if you're fasting, your body makes sugar because it needs to keep its blood sugar up to at a certain level, so it will make it. So I hope I've answered your question. Yes, they both are important.
It's on at 5.
But the model is very similar, because if you have a low carbohydrate diet or fasting, whatever happens is that you're not affecting your insulin level. Low carbohydrate affects it, raises a little bit, whereas fasting doesn't raise it at all.
Yes, so that's very true. The other thing is to do with exercise and to do with sleep. So if you sleep well, that keeps your stress levels lower and you won't run such a high insulin level, you won't run such high blood sugar. And if you exercise regularly, your body becomes more sensitive to insulin. So that will tend to be helpful in terms of reducing inflammation, reducing your blood sugar. Or making your body more sensitive to the insulin. Excuse me a moment.
Okay, if I can just say something. If you're not speaking, I don't intend to, it's always good to mute then, because if anybody coughs or the phone rings, then that just puts you in the frame. But there you go. I don't know who's next.
There are a few people with a hand up.
Do you want to pick one of them? I can't see them.
Okay, we've got Sam. Hiya, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Waiting. Good to see you, mate. Take it easy.
Good to see you. I'm Sam Johnson, and I'm calling from, I live in one of the suburbs around Dallas, Texas. And I've got a question, and I would just like to hear your opinion on this. I'm a cardiovascular patient, and some of the things that I'm hearing is about inflammatory and anti-inflammatory foods. And I know that I used to have problems with hands, my knuckles and things like that hurting, like I just thought it was arthritis. I'm getting older, everybody gets arthritis when they get old and all that. But now that I've started on this low carb diet, cut out the sugars and the breads and all that, I've noticed that it is much, much, much better. It doesn't bother me hardly at all anymore. So can you make a comment? What's your opinion on anti-inflammatory foods? And should we be considering that when we're choosing what we eat each day in this diet?
That's a very good question. So I think there are lots of aspects to it. One of them is that when you go on a low carb diet, your blood sugar gets lower. And I've seen it where people have got 24-hour readings where the blood sugar is just like a flat line, as if they're not diabetic at all. Even diabetics on a low carb diet can maintain that, which is amazing. But that lower blood sugar seems to be effective. And I don't know how soon you noticed that it improved, but I've heard people saying their joint pains improve within a week or 10 days of starting a low carbohydrate diet.
Yes, mine went very, very quickly. Very quickly.
It's amazing. I've actually got a chap I meet when I'm walking my dog, and he was my patient a few years back, and he was going to have knee operations for arthritis. And he lost 4 stone through a low carbohydrate diet about 4 years ago now. And he was able to not only cancel his knee operations, but he actually started running again. And he was able to run 10 kilometers a few times a week without any pain, which I think is just amazing, isn't it? So that's really just about the sugar. Having less carbs means you have less sugar in your blood and you have a lower insulin level, and that's helpful. And you have also, if you address your stresses, you're going to have less cortisol, less adrenaline, that sort of thing, which is good. Anti-inflammatory foods are a completely new thing, are a completely different thing. So I think some of the foods that are generally healthful in terms of blood sugar can still be a problem in terms of inflammation. So, for instance, sunflower oil or other oils, seed oils, they're not going to raise your blood sugar, but they can be inflammatory. We're talking about the puffer, they're 6s rather than the 3s, omega-6s, and having a balance where you've got too many omega-6s, like sunflower oil versus omega-3s, which are fish oils. So that can be an issue. But also, I think with, I don't know much about this, but in terms of crops and things that crops are sprayed with, if you don't clean them off, having non-organic vegetables versus organic. What other things? Oh, yeah, beef. If the beef are fed on grain, that might be an issue. Obviously, the inflammatory nature of things like wheat. I mean, in theory, you could have a low carbohydrate diet and still include wheat in your diet. You could have like a very thin slice of bread for breakfast with 2 eggs, for instance, and you'd probably still get under the 10 grams. But if wheat in itself is inflammatory, then that could be an issue. So Dr. Perlmutter recommended stopping wheat, so I don't eat wheat. It sort of made sense to me that wheat these days is different to the wheat in the olden days, and I thought, well, I might as well stop it and see how I go. But I'm not. It's interesting, really. For the first 5 years I did this, all my joint pains disappeared, but they have come back now, and I'm not completely sure why. And I've been reading a bit about the phytates that come from nuts and things like that, nuts and seeds, and about the need to soak nuts and seeds before you cook them, and to reduce the levels of things like saponins and lectins, and there are other things that are inflammatory as well that won't raise your blood sugar, but they could be an issue. So I think that we always have to have an open mind about things that may cause inflammation in us, because we're all different, aren't we? I did have somebody who, for instance, could eat rice and his blood sugar didn't go up, but most people I know, their blood sugar goes up with rice if they're diabetic. So we do have individual responses.
Thank you.
I hope that's enough.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
We've got Brenda, right? Brenda, you'll have to unmute yourself. Sorry. I muted you when you were moving around, that was all. It's just like anybody moves or makes a noise.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Joe. I had my gallbladder removed several years ago. Am I safer eating 2 meals a day rather than 1, so I'm reducing the fat?
Now let me think. So why would Anybody could eat 2 meals a day. It wouldn't be a particular issue. Obviously, I suppose some people will get better results if they've got lots of weight to lose if they go on to 1 meal a day. But why were you thinking? I'm not quite sure about the question about the fat.
Well, I've been told that because my gallbladder has been removed, that I will have a reaction to eating extra fat. And in fact, I do find that I do. I lost a lot of weight by eating a low-fat diet. Now I'm trying to eat low carbs. I presumably shouldn't be increasing my fat because it does affect my stomach immediately after a meal with fat. So I wondered, rather than trying to eat 1 meal a day, if 2 meals a day would just alleviate that problem.
Yes, I see what you mean now. You can split it across 2 meals. Yes, I think that's fine. I mean, your body will still produce the bile salts. It's more that you wouldn't have it stored and ready to go. Yes, I don't see why not. And if 3 meals works for you, if 3 meals works for somebody, that's fine.
No, it's 2 meals.
2 or 1, 2 is fine.
Yeah, I don't need breakfast. Never hungry at breakfast. Thank you.
Good. That's great. On best. Right. Who's next?
Dr. Joe.
There is a man who's raising his hand for a long time. His name is Steve.
Where are we, Steve? Sorry. Okay, you'll have to unmute, Steve. Sorry. Just unmute yourself so we can hear you.
No problem. Thanks.
Okay, let me put you on. Okay, sorry about this. Listen, if you've already asked 3 or 4 questions and other people want to, if you just hold back on fire a bit, please, if you don't mind. Thanks.
Okay. First of all, for Brenda, I know of people who take supplemental bile salts with their meal to help with the fat digestion.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you.
That might be something worth investigating. Don't know if Dr. Joe got any views on that or she's come across it.
Yes, I haven't heard of those, but I'll look into that. Thank you.
Okay. My question relates to people feeling hungry a couple of hours after eating carbs. We all know the feeling that you eat carbs, you're okay for a while, then you start feeling hungry again. In trying to explain it to people, I'm talking about the blood sugar roller coaster, which seems to make sense. However, is it just the act of the blood sugar dropping rapidly that causes the hunger? Because people who are type 2 diabetics, their roller coaster will be much higher up than a normal person. Their blood sugar will never drop to like 4 or 5 like we will. So is it just the act of the drop, or is it the absolute level that causes ghrelin to start forming and making people hungry?
That's a very good question. So the first thing I'd tell you about is one of our expert patients who's called Keith. So he has a 24-hour monitor and he is diabetic. And so at the beginning, he was quite fond of eating different meals and then photographing his blood sugar chart. So he had one meal, he had cornflakes in the morning and, a glass of orange juice and some milk in his cornflakes. And he observed his blood sugar went from around 4 up to 15. And then afterwards, interestingly, it dropped to below, I think he wasn't even on any drugs, it dropped to about 3.5. And that coincided with when he felt hungry. Now, if someone isn't diabetic, they're not going to have as high a rise, but they may also have that fall. So people often find if they have something like cornflakes or Weetabix, a cereal for breakfast, that they do feel hungry mid-morning. And I suspect that's because the blood sugar goes a bit too low. The body's always trying to right the problem, and it tends to overdo it at times. The other thing, which I think is quite interesting, is that it's said that people want to eat until they've got all their nutrients. So if they have foods which aren't nutritious enough, they will want to eat again. And if you think about something like cornflakes and milk, it's got vitamins in it, but it doesn't have any essential fats, or it doesn't have a lot of protein. You get a bit of protein from the milk, but it's not really a substantial enough breakfast for someone who's hungry in the morning. And so the hunger you may feel at 11 o'clock, maybe your body telling you that you want to have something more substantial. And that's why eggs or yogurt or last night's leftovers of meat are much better for you in the morning rather than cereal. But I don't know any science behind that, but it is often said, and I think people have tried to show it scientifically, that overweight people their bodies are constantly trying to eat to try and get enough nutrients from whatever they're offering themselves. But if they're offering themselves the wrong sort of food, they keep on eating and keep on feeling hungry. And the other thing is, when people are insulin resistant, they take the blood sugar out of the blood and take it out of the way, and the blood sugar drops too low. And then they will also want to eat again because the blood sugar has just gone too low. So it probably happens more where people have got an abnormal way of dealing with glucose than people who are simply, like physiologically normal and eating any old breakfast. I think if they're physiologically normal, their bodies will cope with it better. But lots of us who are older just don't cope with food that isn't sustaining, food that isn't nutritious enough. So I've gone a bit round the houses. But yeah, in essence, I think it is mostly because your blood sugar goes too low.
So you're saying it's an absolute value, that even a type 2 diabetic whose average blood sugar is way high, their blood sugar could drop to the likes of 3 and 4.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, well, that's right. Definitely. That's what happened to Keith. He's type 2 diabetic. I think we recognize, as doctors, we recognize that diabetics' blood sugars go too high and go too low, but we don't recognize that normal people also have blood sugars that can drop too low. And there's something called reactive hypoglycemia that a lot of people talk about in the functional medicine world, but which GPs and other doctors in the standard world don't talk about and don't recognize, because it doesn't really have any consequences in terms of needing medication or injury, whereas a hypoglycemic attack in a diabetic patient may result in them going to hospital or falling over and injuring themselves. In a non-diabetic, it just makes you feel a bit sort of shaky and woozy, but you just sit down and it passes without any sort of bad consequence.
Okay. Who's next? Have you got anybody who wants to speak up?
Beatrix in the corner there. Yeah.
Thank you. I have started cutting out carbohydrates and the weight dropped quite quickly. But then there came a time when the plateau set in, and I was wondering, what can I do to overcome the plateau? And the second is, I've heard voices who said I should mess up my metabolism. I have no idea what that means.
That's a very good one. So I think your first question is what to do in case of a plateau. So so Treflin has a video watched this week called Demystifying the Keto Diet, and he talks about plateaus in that and what he did, which was chiefly cutting down the fat and cutting down his eating time window. And he did also some longer fasts, but certainly he went on to 1 meal a day and cut down his fat. There's a section on Diet Doctor on the website about the different things to do when you hit a plateau, but those are two of the main ones. And the other thing I would say is, if you're in the habit of having tea and coffee with milk in them several times, you're not. Okay. Well, have a look maybe at Treflin's video, or look at Diet Doctor for what to do if you reach a plateau. They have quite a lot of things on there. Then your second question, just remind me, because it was a good one.
It was messing up my metabolism.
Such a good one. A good one.
Would you mind if I quickly slot something in? I'm working in a school. That means I have regulated break time. So my first break time is at 11 o'clock. Then I normally have prepared food, lots of vegetables, little bit of meat, and a little bit of cheese. So 30 grams of Stilton or whatever. And then I warm that up. I eat that, and that ties me over until 5 o'clock when I'm at home. And then I eat more or less the same thing again. And that kept me going for quite a while. until I hit the plateau. This is why.
Mm-hmm.
And I also found that when I eat my first meal at 11 o'clock, I had this sugar craving. So in the end, I resorted to a boiled sweet that was made with the sweetener, one boiled sweet that was just giving me enough sweetness, so I didn't crave anymore. But that was something that I can have discovered for myself. Didn't need any other food, just a little sweet after the main meal, and I was done. But coming back to the the mixing up of the metabolism. Sorry.
Okay, so it's a very good question. So I think what's happening with your plateau is when you eat something sweet, it raises your hormone insulin, even though it doesn't contain any sugar. And this is one reason to avoid sweeteners. And also you mentioned about cheese. So there's some thought that postmenopausal women may have a problem with dairy. So dairy raises their insulin as well. So cutting out cheese might be helpful. In terms of disturbing your metabolism, well, you are actually trying to change your metabolism through this way of eating. It's a way of life. And I don't think there's any evidence that it reduces your ability to cope with a certain level of calories, let's say. So one of the problems with reducing your metabolism, say for instance in The Biggest Loser, which was a program over in America which made it to these shores. So in The Biggest Loser, they were on a low calorie diet and they were exercising a lot, and their metabolism went down over time, so that they were able to eat less and less food. Which is a big problem. And that also happened in a very famous experiment called the Minnesota experiment. You can look it up. It was to do with American conscientious objectors who were put into an experimental camp to see what happened if they were starved. So if people are starved, such as, people, either deliberately starve themselves or go on an experiment, over time they get thinner and thinner and their metabolism goes down. So even when they're eating very little food, they can put weight on. But this is something different. So that's why I think we need to listen to our bodies. So if our bodies tell us we need to eat 2 or 3 times a day, that's fine. If our bodies tell us we're fine eating once a day, that's also fine. And it's also fine doing extended fast for 2 or 3 days if it feels right to us. We don't get too stressed through it. Once we get stressed through these things, they're not right for us and we shouldn't do them, because the stress itself is counterproductive. So I don't think there's any evidence that these shorter intermittent fasts are a problem for metabolism. Certainly they haven't been with any patients of mine. So just see how you go yourself. The most well-known doctor worldwide about intermittent fasting is Dr. Jason Fung. So you can look him up, F for Freddie, U-N-G. He's a Canadian physician. Yeah, he's very, very good about intermittent fasting. And I don't think it's an issue. It's just a matter of choice, and it's just a lifestyle change. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the people who say it to affect your metabolism probably don't know enough about what you're doing. They're just misunderstanding and thinking about the other sorts of fasting that people sometimes do.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, where are we going now? Okay, Jan, how are you doing? You okay?
Hello.
Just speak up so we can hear you, Jan. Okay, welcome aboard.
Can you hear me now?
Better. Where are you, Jan?
I'm from Johannesburg.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I just want to know. I just want to lose weight. I'm like you were. I weigh exactly what you weighed when you started, and it's so uncomfortable. And my feet ache and my joints ache. So I just want to lose weight. I'm fine with OMAD. I can handle the 1 meal a day. But I understand I need to cut out carbohydrates, mostly. And I'll cut out some more fat as well, so that my body can start using the fat in my body. Is that the basis of it?
Yes, it is. I mean, Jan, from what you say, you're thinking about this. You haven't actually started it yet. Is that right?
Yes, I've been on 4 days now.
Oh, very good. Yep, that's the hardest bit, starting it. Yes, you've got the potential to lose all that weight, just like Treflin did. Follow follow his Facebook page, and if necessary, get some. There's a lot of it in South Africa. In South Africa, it's called banting.
Banting,
I don't know if
yes.
you've, yes. Yeah, so banting, and Professor Tim Noakes, he started it in South Africa. So, and the only difference between the banting diet and what we do is that, you know, the fasting's quite a big bit of what Treflin's done, and I think it's an ideal treatment for someone who's got a lot of weight to lose, because he did lose it very quickly. You lost most of it in about a year, didn't you, Treflin?
I did, yeah. I'm just showing you now the videos. I mean, this is on the Warrington low carbohydrate group. I've got video demystifying the ketogenic diet, can you eat a calorie, and lots of stuff on there, how I lost 9 stone in 12 months. So this is just information. And I'm going to be honest here, if it wasn't for Dr. Joe, then I wouldn't be in the position to actually do this, you know. And so I just want to thank her so much for all her amazing support, really. You know, let me just stop this. I'm trying to get back into the meeting here. Sorry, guys. I think
that's okay. I think it's very important to show how you did it, because you know, Jan's right at the beginning of his journey, and I think we do need support. So if we can't get support face to face, you know, getting it online is the next best thing.
Actually, Tim Noakes himself is on OMAD now.
Oh, is he? Tim Noakes himself?
He eats 1 meal a day now.
That's interesting.
Jan, I mean, I started this diet in actually February 25th. But I was very obese. I was 270 kilos, I would say, you know, and now I'm 169. So
wow.
So I've lost about 106. Yeah, 106 kilos within the last 9 months, just by 1 meal a day and no fat in it. And also, you know, working on my mindset as well a lot, you know, in terms of what I focus on, and it did help being in actually lockdown, because there wasn't any places to eat or sort of go. So I just focused on my diet.
Oh. And you say fruit is not good.
Oh,
yeah, that's right. Do you eat fruit, Harvey?
No, I don't eat any fruit. I don't eat any sugar. I actually don't have any sweetness in my drink. I've actually cut the taste of sugar at all from my diet.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you like fruit, Jan.
Yes, I do, but I'll leave it if it's necessary.
It's certainly, if you give up fruit, you tend to you find it easier to give up other sweet things as well. You know, if you just move over to a more savoury diet.
Okay.
Yeah, that retrains your sweet tooth if you've got one.
Thank you very
if
much.
people do eat fruit, I just suggest berries. That's it.
Right. Okay.
All the best. Look forward to hearing your progress.
Well done, Jan.
Okay, how are we doing? Are we okay? Have we got anybody else who wants to speak? Hiya, Andrea again. Right, come in.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Dr. Joe, I think this is my most important question for this low carb diet for me. Do I need to get a scale or something to like weigh like what I'm eating? Because I don't know how to, like, is it no carbs or low carbs? If it's low carbs, how do I know how much I can or should be eating? Like, my weaknesses is I love bread, I love pasta, and I love white rice. I haven't eaten any of those things. But is there any situation where I can have them without it jacking me up? And when can I have them? Can I not have them at all? Or it's low carb, no carb, and how much when I do have the carbs?
Okay, very good question. So Treflin put this on earlier. I don't know if I presume you can get it in the States. It's a Carb Counter.
Okay.
He might just put it on in a minute.
Yeah, well,
yeah. And so some things are really easy to remember. Like, for instance, eggs and meat and fish don't have any carbs in them at all.
Okay.
Okay, so that's easy. So you don't need to weigh them or count them particularly. Although you would tend to do like the size of palm of your hand in terms of a piece of meat or fish tops.
Okay.
Okay. Other things like green vegetables have very few carbs, so you don't need to measure green vegetables or cauliflower. Anything that grows above the ground, like courgettes, cauliflower, cabbage, you don't need to measure at all. What you would need to measure would be something that did contain carbs, like, for instance, rice. You might think, I'll have rice once a month. There we go, that's it. You might think I would like rice once a month, but you would need to measure it. And so there's a good index at the back, which I'll just look through, say about rice, and it shows you the different quantities. And yes, you would need to measure rice. Or you might think, I'll just have a teaspoon, or not a teaspoon, I'll just have a tablespoonful. It's not too much.
If you don't mind, can I give you my little opinion? If you want, if you want to lose weight, okay, you have to be, you have to make your mind and decide if you want to lose weight or you want to continue being fat. If you want to lose weight, cut everything that is carb or related to carb, and you make a conscious decision. So then, you can have alternatives like cauliflower rice, which is made out of cauliflower. It's not rice, but it's similar to rice. You bake your own bread. There are some recipes in internet for coconut bread. Okay, yes, it is not French bread. Okay, but it's something similar. But I try. You see, I have 1 year cheating. Cheating means, I did the program for a week, and then I had a little bit of sweet, okay, and that little sweet destroyed my progress.
Okay, so I think that's really good, Pablo. Thank you. And I think that's a very, very good point, because if you can occasionally have some rice once a month, and if that's the end of it, that is fine. But Pablo points out that if you don't do it, if it could just be that could be the end of it, and you could actually just give it all up and not do it at all. And that's obviously a big problem. Dr. David Perlmutter, who I started off with, suggested that people had rice no more than twice a week, or something like it if they had carrots or something like that, which is, higher carb. But something like bread, I advise people to avoid completely, because I find it's very moreish and people tend to eat a lot of it and put a lot of things on it as well. And I even find the low carb breads, I tend to reserve them for times when the family come round, because if everybody's here, we'll all share it. But if it's just me, I'll tend to eat it all, or a lot of it. So I don't tend to make it very often. From this book, I recommend people have, it's not no carb, it's low carb. So I recommend people have a low amount of carbs, mostly from leafy green vegetables and other plants. That's where the carbs will be from, rather than fruit, and certainly not from bread or rice.
Right. I like that book. That's what I was trying to figure out, because I haven't had any carbs. I mean, I love bread and pasta and white rice, and I haven't had those things. So I'm not trying to figure out a way to cheat. That's not what I'm doing. No. I haven't.
Do you have carbs from vegetables, Andrea? Do you have carbs from vegetables?
I have mostly like the green vegetables. Like I like the cauliflower and the broccoli. And the Brussels sprouts, the zucchinis, cucumbers, stuff like that. And I love salads. So I was just trying to find out if I could, I'm not eating carbs, but if I were to eat a carb, if I were to say, okay, I wanted a piece of bread and something, I want to know that's not like destroying my whole, am I never going to have those things again? Or is it a matter of I just should kind of shut them off until my weight gets more stabilized and I know better how to eat them and when and how often to not to, make. I think that's
a good point. Just you could just do a deal with yourself. You'll leave it for a while, and then have a small quantity and see if you can just leave it at that. We're human, aren't we? Most of us will occasionally at some point in our lives have a bit of rice or have a small piece of cake or something like that. But I think over time you get more used to saying, I just don't eat. Thank you very much. But no, I'm fine. I'm not hungry. And you get used to that. And I think Pablo was right, that it could become a slippery slope, especially if you did it at the beginning. So it's probably best to wait until you've achieved some of your goals first.
Right, and I know Treflin was trying to encourage us not to.
We've sort of communicated many times, Andrea, regarding the questions that you've asked and the answers I've given. You know, there's always a reason for not doing what you're doing, and I've got something here, and I have it all the time, and I'll just give you a minute to read that. You know, and that's it really. If you're serious about changing your life, you'll find a way. If you're not, you'll find an excuse. And there's always somebody out there who's looking for an alternative to rice, an alternative to this, an alternative to that. You know, if that's the game, then you're not going to get there. And I said to Linda, who's not with us now when we were speaking, I said, if you were those lady in Chicago, I said, if you wanted to walk to New York, you could walk at 1 mile a day, and you would eventually get there. But it's a long journey, and you'd probably get fed up along the way. Whereas the easiest way to get there is to stick to the rules, find out what works and stick to the rules. I got to where I want to be in 12 months, so now I can relax. If I was still on my journey, if I'd only lost a quarter of the weight I'd lost, I'd probably have given up long time ago, because I'm just motivated by results. You ask, should we buy a pair of scales? I advocate that everybody should weigh themselves daily. That's my opinion. And I also say keep a weight journal. Write down what you eat and how it does and what it does to you. And if you find that you've eaten something, you had a bowl of rice, or you've had some fat, or you've had this, and it's stalled your weight loss, or it's put weight on you or something, then you learn then, you find out what works. Oh, that's weird. Every time I eat rice, I don't lose any weight for 3 days. Every time I eat this happens. And so that's how I learned. I figured out what worked for me. So we can ask all the questions, hoping that somebody will give us that answer, that perfect answer, that you can drink as much as you want, you can smoke whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, and you're quite entitled to do it. But then there's a consequence to it, and you've got to understand what the consequence of your decisions are and make the best decision you can, knowing whether it's going to be a long journey or a short journey. But there's no easy answer. Whichever way, you either get stuck in and do it and get there quickly, or you take the slow road, and then with lots of questions and disappointments and temptations along the route. That's my thoughts on it.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know how much longer we've got, or if it's coming to a close now, Treflin.
Whatever you want. It's your meeting.
Well, I probably would like to head on. If anybody's got any other questions, I don't know, we've probably got time for one more, and then call it a day. But you can always ask Treflin, and then I can, through his Keep Fat Club or through the low carb site, and then I can always answer on there.
Well, thank you very much, Doctor.
Well, all the best, Brenda.
Thank you.
Dr. Joe.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Yes, thank you, Trevor.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Joe.
Yes,
Thank you. Welcome, all the best to you all.
Your website is good reading as well, Dr. Joe, as well. So I've had a quick look while I was on there. So there's another resource now. There's Dr. Joe's website, the Fat is My Friend website, and also Treflin's as well. So there's some real good resources out there. Thank you both, Treflin and Joe, for your time. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Lee. That's great. Lovely. Anybody else? No final questions? You all done? That's great. Well, enjoy your Friday evening, Friday daytime for some people.
Okay.
Have a good weekend.
Every Monday we have a meeting that's 2:30. Now you have to figure out your time. If this time of the day, 2 p.m. Sorry, yeah, there we go. If this time of the day suits you better, which is 4 p.m. UK time, if that's better for you people, I'm more than happy to change the time of the meeting. I'm also setting up a series of meetings for people who maybe have got questions. I would invite you to join us on that, Andrea. It's not a Zoom meeting. It's not a support group meeting. It's a meeting to explain what works and what's worked for me. An opportunity for you to have a one-to-one with me, if you like, rather than with a support group meeting. And so it's for people who maybe you've read so many diet systems, you've got this information, that information, you're confused about counting macros, about carbohydrates, counting calories, should you do this, should you do that. So the details are on the Keep Fat Club. I invite you to send me a private message to say that you want to come along. I don't think we're going to have as many people on it as we've had today. We've had over 20 on today, and that's fabulous. But I just want to say that I'm here for you guys. I'm not doing this for me. I've got other things that I can be doing, but I just want to help people. I'm so glad to have Dr. Jo has just made herself available at no extra cost and not costing me anything at all. Praise God for that. But she's such a lovely, lovely lady with a real passion to see you guys sorted out, as am I. But, you know, we can't do it if you're going to keep jumping off the roof and breaking your legs and then coming back the next day saying, can you fix my legs for me? I'm going to say, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong place. I've just been dead straight with you. You know, I'll give you the information, take it on board, make it work, but don't waste my time, because I'm not going to let that happen. And if that sounds harsh, I don't mean it to be, but I'm here to help those who want to help themselves. So anyway, I'll give the floor back to Dr. Jo. If you want to talk about David Unwin's infographics, Jo, that's fine, if you don't mind, for a second. If I've upset anybody today, I'm not bothered. Carry on.
Right. Well, let's see. So I was thinking that, thanks very much, Treflin. So I was thinking that we need to wind up now, but maybe the nice thing to show would be Dr. Unwin's infographics. So you're able to get one of those up, either about the one about the general one, or the one about fruit, or the one about bread and cereals. I mean, I think that's quite a good one to finish on.
Okay, I'm just doing this while you're talking. I can't see you.
Yeah, that's fine. Also, if you want to look at my website when we're done, fatismyfriend.co.uk, you'll see quite a lot of blogs about how it helps your health generally. Chap earlier mentioned about arthritis, but it also helps things like IBS, which is one reason to stay off wheat completely. It also helps things like headaches, migraines. It also helps things like PCOS. There's so many conditions which it helps, which you'll see on my website. Yeah, there we go. So these are infographics. Now, if you expand those, I don't know if you can expand one of them. There we go. That's not a bad one, the green one. So that just shows you how much, just one example would be basmati rice, how it converts to so many 10 teaspoons of sugar. If you've got a serving size of about 150 grams, it's about 6 ounces.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a lot. And French fries, so this is from, it's okay. So this shows you the public health collaboration, which I'm part of, the website, and it goes through all sorts of foods, from cereals to breakfast, to other breakfasts, to fruits, vegetables, breads, all sorts. You can just click on them. It's a free website. We're a charity. We do accept donations. I haven't charged for my time, but the public health collaboration always needs donations, and you can get lots of really good health information there. So please do log on later. The other thing I'd be grateful if you'd show them just is my website, just see. And it's a very simple website, very easy to get around, just going through ideas for eating.
Where do you want me to go? Do you want me to go on the blog?
Yeah, just if you just scroll down the page, actually. Yeah, so yeah, you can see there's an open letter for your doctor if you want to take it along, just about what you're doing. We have also got, let's see, low carb and lockdown. But at the start of the blog, you'll see there's a pick list about many, many different conditions and everything that happens. You could just type in something like IBS, and then something would come up. But yeah.
My friend.
Let's see. Yeah. So yeah, and so there's FAQs in that open letter. I don't want to go into it now. Everybody's very busy. But yeah, we can just leave it at that for today. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really a pleasure and humbling, actually, getting to know so many people who find out this for themselves. We do our best to educate other doctors about this way of living, but it's a slow process getting through to people. But thank you very much. And if you've got any questions, Treflin can always get through to me. He knows how to contact me. And you can contact me through my website anyway if you want to send me a direct a question. It's got my NHS email address on it, so it might be best to contact me through Twitter or Facebook. that would be fine. You'll see the social media links there. Okay. Thank you very much.
Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
And
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay.